My wife used to collect spoons. As you'll soon see, I collect rifles. Which is the more socially appropriate activity? You decide. I want to talk a little bit about kinetic energy. A lot of people get upset about kinetic energy. They say it's unfair because velocity is squared. And that seems, well, you're giving too much emphasis to velocity. But this is a rule of the universe. The people who are scientists who discovered the energy, the amount of work that can be done, realized that velocity kills. So when something's going twice as fast, it's not creating twice the work, it's creating 4 times the work. That's just the way the universe works. It's why when you get up to a little photon of light, which is almost weightless, or maybe is weightless, when it starts going at the speed of light, it's got enormous energy. Velocity equals energy. And although energy is expressed a little differently, like a 2250 and a 4570 might have the same amount of kinetic energy, and they express themselves a little different. The amount of work they'll do, the amount of tissue destruction that they'll do, is roughly equivalent. Now the 2250 will make a big wide wound, very shallow, especially if you use varmint bullets. And a 4570 will make a long, narrow wound and actually puncture both lungs. So one of them is probably better for big game, but both of them will create about the same amount of work because they have the same amount of energy. Energy actually matters. Welcome to the Yukon and North 61. Let's talk a little bit more about Bison rifles. People seem to be getting upset with me because I'm telling them that what rifles use for Bison, and I'm not taking my big bore rifles very often, so big bore levers. So here's a reason why. So let's talk about legality first of all. So here's 2 of my favorite moose guns. Here's a 375 Winchester, shooting 255 grain Barnes Originals at 1900. Really nice rig. And there's my son's moose gun. That's a 450 Bushmaster in a Ruger. That's a MOA rifle. That's an amazing little rifle. Neither of these rifles make 2,800 foot-pounds with standard ammunition, so they're not legal. I could have a 7mm rem mag in here too, and though it makes 2,800 foot-pounds, it does not have a 30 caliber minimum. So Yukon minimum, 30 caliber, 2,800 foot-pounds, 180 grain bullet. You can't use anything less than any of those 3 things together. Illegal. So let's, as an experiment, say we want 2,500 foot-pounds of energy to do enough tissue damage on a bison to really be worthwhile. Let's say 2,500 foot-pounds is the amount we want. At what ranges does that take different rifles to? So if we take a look at one of my favorite rifles, a 348 Winchester, shoots blunt bullets. It runs out of 2,500 foot-pounds the way I load it at 70 yards. So past 70 yards, you're under 2,500 foot-pounds. The 450 Marlin, or a heavily loaded 4570 and a carbine, 1,900 feet per second with a 400 grain bullet. Those bullets are bluff-nosed. You might get to 95 yards. And that's if I use the Barnes ballistic coefficients, which I don't believe, on the Barnes Originals because they're so much ahead of the others. But it says 95 yards. Here's a nice little 6-pound rifle, an 8mm Mauser in a Berno 21H. These are terrific little rifles. 220 grain Hornadays will take this to 125 yards. So it's because that bullet is pointed and it loses its energy less quickly, it hangs on to its energy better, and you get that 2,500 foot-pounds right out to 125 yards, which is the same as the 405 Winchester, because it shoots pointed bullets too, but they're very short and they run out of speed pretty quick too. So even though this starts at like 3,500 foot-pounds, by the time you're at 125 yards, you're down to 2,500 foot-pounds. And that's just the way it works. 350 rem mag, because it's a carbine, because the bullets are loaded a little bit deep, get you to about 160, 170 yards, depending on your loading. 30-06, because it's got nice pointy bullets, and you can load them up, like this 2820 at 180 grain AccuBond, right out to 185 yards. It'll hold on to 2,500 foot-pounds. I put all of these rifles in the marginal class because they have range limitations. three range limitations to look at. These blunt nose lever guns also run out of 1600 feet per second, so the bullets don't expand, and they also have trajectory limitations. The 8mm Mauser, just a power problem. The 405 Winchester, it has a better trajectory than the other lever guns, but it still has some range limitations and that 1600 feet per second limitation. So would I shoot that to 200 yards? Probably, but that's about it. No further than that. The 350 Rem Mag, maybe to 200 yards. 30-06, maybe to 200 yards. Past that, none of these rifles are usable after 200 yards. And Bison are often found in the open range. Boy, this Leica is a good rangefinder. So those are Bison, Jane, are 1,404 yards away. So often when I'm going out with people and there's going to be competition to get the Bison, I don't want to take any of these rifles because there's limitations in them. So let's take a look at some rifles that don't have those limitations. Don't get me wrong, all of those rifles will kill past 200 yards, but are they ideal? No, for a variety of reasons they're not ideal. So the 200 yard plus rifles, 9.3 by 62. This is an incredibly efficient round. Some people compare it to a 35 Whelen or a 350 Rem Mag, but you've got longer bullets, faster twist, and with the 250 grain AccuBonds, this baby will take you right out to 250 yards. And it'll still have 2,500 foot-pounds. Amazing, amazingly efficient rifle. 300 Win Mag. The advantage of a 300 Magnum over a 30-06 can be seen on Bison-sized animals. Under that, I think I'd rather have a 30-06. But this will take you to 2,500 foot-pounds right out to 320 yards. And it'll also have a trajectory that gets you to 385 yards without dipping more than 10 inches below. And it'll take you to 1,600 feet per second forever. It'll go way, way out there. So a 300 Win Mag, 300 Ultra Mag, even more impressive, like 420 yards or so. It'll keep 2,500 foot-pounds. So these 300 Magnums come into their own with Bison. Why do I love this 358 Norma? Because it's probably my best Bison rifle. It's probably my best Bison caliber. 340 yards. It'll keep 2,500 foot-pounds. And the trajectory is good. It doesn't dip more than 10 inches low to 340 yards. It's a really nice balance. And I really like this 458 Win Mag. So I'm shooting 400 grain Spitzers at close to 2,400 feet per second. It keeps 2,500 foot-pounds because it starts with 5,000 right out to 365, 370 yards. And the trajectory is a 300-yard trajectory. So this is a 300-yard rifle for both trajectory, energy, and it'll keep that 1,600 feet per second as well, way past that. And that's with 400 grain originals that are pointed and have a pretty good ballistic coefficient. So looking at all these things together, that's why I keep ending up bringing this 358 Norma, because 340 yards, capable. And you might find a Bison at 340 yards. I've got a 1:6 Husqvarna scope on it with all the little reticle doodads. I can hit to 315 yards, 340 yards all day long with this rifle. It's also sub-MOA. So when I take a look at this rifle and compare it to the 450 Marlin, a lot of people like these big bores. 2,500 foot-pounds to 95 yards, 100 yards. 2,000 foot-pounds probably make it to 150 yards. And then you start running into real low energy levels and really low energy or speed levels to get the bullets to expand. So in the bush, great. In the open, some limitations. People don't like to hear that, but that's mathematics doesn't lie. So that's something to talk about. Now people talk about cross-sectional area, and they'll say, look, the 450 has a lot more cross-sectional area. That's true, and it'll make a larger permanent cavity, But that temporary cavity where you just knock the hell out of the organs when something really fast goes through, the 450 is not as good at that. So you will notice some improvement with a bigger bullet, but it doesn't cover all sins. And just having that lack of energy and that slow speed, that slow expansion, and trajectory issues and issues with expansion, you can't make a 450 Marlin into a long-range Bison rifle.
And I know there's FTX bullets that are pointy that you can use in these lever guns with tubular magazines, but they're usually fairly short and designed to open up fairly quickly and not really designed for really big animals. You want a bullet that's going to hold together in Bison country.
It just can't be done. Even the 405 Winchester, which is a little better, not a long-range rifle. Maybe I can get to 200 yards with the 405. So would you rather go out and have a 200-yard limitation? Sometimes that's okay, sometimes that's fun. But if I want to make sure I get a Bison, make sure I have the best possibility, I go back to the Norma Magnum. So that's a little bit more on my thought process. It's been minus 42 here for a number of days, so I'm getting ready for a couple more trips. You can bet I'll be probably taking some combination of the rifles on this side of the room, which is not, I'll put this one back where it belongs on the other side of the room in the marginal area. People don't like to hear that, but that's how I see it. Thanks for watching.
But North 61, what about the big Bison kill-off in the 1800s with the big 45 caliber black powder guns? What about that? Well, if I had a train going through Bison country and I could just shoot them from the window and they could go and die eventually, if that was our level of sportsmanship today, I guess those firearms would be perfect. Because when you put a big narrow hole at low velocity through an animal's lungs, it just takes a while to die. Now when you're on foot and that thing is very close to you and it takes a while to die, it just might stomp you to death while it's deciding to die. So I want a smack when I go hunting Bison. I want good bullet weight, good velocity, good trajectory, good expansion, good penetration. I want it all. And to get it all, these modern firearms, there's a reason they're modern firearms. So I will use the big bore levers when it's close, when I'm in, because they are a little faster than the old style black powder guns. They do have some of that punch, but they lose that punch pretty quick because of those flat nose bullets. So thanks for watching. I'll see you out on the Bison trail.